All right, today we're diving into something pretty cool. A brand new report card for the massive engines of our global economy, our ports. We're talking about a new way of measuring what truly matters for their future. So yeah, let's get right into it.
I mean, just think about it for a second. That coffee you're sipping, the phone in your hand, maybe even the car you drive. Chances are, all of it passed through a port. These places are like the invisible lifelines of our modern world. They're literally the gateways for nearly everything we use, own, and eat.
So, they're obviously critical to how we live right now. But what about tomorrow? As the world is grappling with these enormous challenges, climate change, inequality, the real question becomes, are our ports, these huge titans of trade, actually ready for what's coming?
To even begin to answer that, we have to connect the day-to-day operations of a port to, well, humanity's biggest goals. It means we have to see them not just as economic machines, but as key players in building a sustainable future for all of us. And that's where the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, come in. You've probably heard of them. Adopted back in 2015, these 17 goals are our shared global blueprint for a better world. They cover everything from poverty to climate action. Really, they're the ultimate benchmark for what sustainability actually means. So, the big question is, how do we know if ports are really pulling their weight when it comes to these goals? Well, a fascinating new study is proposing a completely new kind of scorecard, one designed specifically to measure a port's performance against these exact goals. This groundbreaking research comes from a paper by Cunha, Costa, Oliveira, and Pereira, and they say it themselves this is the first framework of its kind, at least for the Brazilian port sector, that is totally and completely aligned with the SDGs. It's a real game changer. So what exactly did they create? Well, the best way to think of it is like a comprehensive 360-degree health check. It doesn't just look at one thing, like environmental impact. No, it assesses the complete picture of a port's health, socially, economically, and environmentally. The whole shebang. Okay, so let's break down how this model is built. It doesn't try to tackle all 17 SDGs at once, which would be a lot. Instead, it smartly focuses on the 8 goals that are most relevant to how a port actually operates. We're talking about the big ones like affordable and clean energy, climate action, and life below water. From there, those 8 big picture goals are broken down even further into 20 thematic areas. This is where it gets more specific, right? It translates these broad ambitions into tangible things like energy efficiency, waste management, and how ports engage with their local communities. And it gets even more detailed. Those 20 areas are then measured using 84 specific quantifiable indicators. Now we're talking about concrete metrics, things you can actually measure, like the percentage of renewable energy used, or the number of community projects. This is where the rubber meets the road. And the way they score all this? It's brilliantly simple. For every single one of those 84 indicators, a port gets a grade on a simple 0 to 3 scale. 0, that means they've done nothing. A 1, okay, they're just getting started. A 2 means they're taking consistent action. And a 3, that's the gold standard. That's a true best practice. Super clear. So, the researchers took this powerful new tool and applied it to 6 major ports in Brazil. And these aren't small ports. Together, they handle nearly a third of the entire country's cargo. So what did they find? Well, the results are pretty eye-opening. Looking at the big picture, a pretty clear pattern popped out. The ports were doing best on SDG 17, which is all about building partnerships, and SDG 12, which focuses on responsible consumption. That's the good news. But the report card also showed some major weaknesses. The lowest scores by far were in SDG 13, climate action, and SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. And there were definitely some class leaders. 2 ports, which the study calls Port B and Port E, really stood out. They showed the highest overall alignment with these sustainability ideas, with a much more balanced and comprehensive approach than the others. But here's what the data really revealed, and this is maybe the most important part. If you look at this simplified heat map, you see a lot of black dots, especially for climate action and clean energy. That points to a huge problem, a lack of data. In a lot of cases, it's not just that ports are underperforming, it's that they aren't even measuring their impact to begin with. You can't manage what you don't measure. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is all about Brazil, but the implications here are truly global. What this study has created is a blueprint, a template that any port anywhere in the world can pick up and use to measure and, more importantly, improve its own sustainability.
And that's really the power of this framework, right? It's a practical tool for ports to look in the mirror. It directly connects the nuts and bolts of daily operations to the world's most important goals. It creates a common language for sustainability, and crucially, it fosters the kind of transparency and accountability we desperately need. It turns a vague ambition into a clear, actionable checklist. Which kind of leaves us with one last big question. This study gave a report card to just 6 ports. But imagine if every single port in the world had one. Just think about it. If we could clearly see who was leading and who was lagging on the goals that matter most, how do you think our world would change?